everybody, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new here. My name is Katie and welcome to my first book haul. So in this video I'm going to be showing you all the books that I've accumulated over the past few months that I have read. So yeah, these are kind of all the books that TikTok influenced me to buy, or as I should say, book talk influenced me to buy. So I just wanted to show you guys a haul and maybe a little review on what I think of the book. Anyways, without further ado, let's just get right into it. Okay, so starting off strong, I'm gonna start with Serpent and Dove. Comes in a series. I only have the first two. I don't have the third book yet because I'm weird and I need everything in soft cover or else I'll like cry. So if I have the first soft cover one, I need to get the rest soft cover. So anyways, the first book follows the story of Lou, who is the witch, and Reed, who is the witch hunter, and it's kind of enemies to lovers. That is one of my favorite tropes. I'm gonna be honest, half of my books are enemies to lovers. Without revealing too much, they end up getting married. How they get married is very fun. It's not a mutual decision, I'll say that. They were kind of forced to get married. There's a lot of secrets, there's a lot of relatable, like really great characters. I love Lou and I love Reed so much, and I love their relationship and their dynamic and just their like tension, I guess you could say. There is a shared bed, like one bed, one room type of trope. I know a lot of people are into that too. So yeah, I do really like this book. I sped through this book so fast. I would recommend this like 10 on 10. It's a good book. Just go read it. If you're into enemies to lovers, if you like witches, if you like fantasy, more than half these books are all they are actually all fantasy. Wow. Anyways, I just really love this book and it's a great read. Just go pick it up and read it. As for the second one, so the second one in the series is called Blood and Honey. Still following the story of Reed and Lou and just picking up where the first one left off. They're in a lot of trouble, I guess you could say, and they're on the run. They're all kind of just being hunted at this point. There's a lot of drama, just a lot going on. A lot of new characters are being introduced into this one. She starts playing with a very dark side of magic, which has a lot of bad consequences on not just on her but on everyone around her. So to be honest, everyone literally hates this book. I've seen like so many bad reviews of this book on TikTok. Was it my absolute favorite book? No. Did it take me longer to read this? Absolutely. Am I disappointed with it? No. I still enjoyed the read. It just took me longer to read it than the first one. The first one I could not put down. This one I had more trouble kind of being into it and being into the story a little bit more, but the way it ended was like such a shock and such like a whoa that, you know, I really want to read the third one to find out what happens. But it does start off slow and it takes a while for the story to kind of pick up, but again, I'm patient, and once I start a series I usually do have to finish it, and I really did enjoy the first one. So the second book is definitely not my favorite, but would I say it's horrible? Absolutely not. I still really like this book and would recommend this series in its entirety. So yeah. Alright, so next up I'm going to start with my absolute favorite series in this whole book haul. So it is called From Blood and Ash, and it's by Jennifer L. Armentrout. You guessed it, enemies to lovers. I finished this book, I want to say in like 2 days. I'm absolutely obsessed. Actually, when I first started reading this, I didn't know this, but this is essentially about gods and like they don't say vampires and werewolves, but there are like wolven, they call them, vampires essentially. So Poppy is mortal or human. She is the maiden, which is exactly what it sounds like. She is the chosen one, as she's been told her whole life. Her whole life she's never been able to do anything of her own will. She can't even be spoken to or looked at. She doesn't have any friends. I believe the only one friend that she has is one of her like ladies' maids, I guess. That's her best friend. And basically she is preparing for her ascension, which is a huge ceremony in her kingdom. So there's a bunch of different kingdoms, a bunch of different sides. There's a lot. It's a whole like fantasy world. This is amazingly detailed and just amazingly and beautifully written. Again, I don't want to spoil too much, but she ends up getting this guard that's supposed to protect her. Unbeknownst to him, she doesn't need protection. She's a badass. She is a complete badass. She is not a damsel in distress. None of these girls in these books are damsels in distresses, which I love. I love to see it. I love to read it. She's definitely a relatable character because she struggles with her morals, I guess. You know, she's not supposed to do things, but she wants to do them, or she does it behind people's backs. So when this temptation of a guard comes, she kind of struggles with what's forbidden and what's not, what she can and can't have, and it's just an internal battle an internal struggle for her. This is mature content. If you are under 18 or you're a parent and you want to pick this up for your 12-year-old, I highly suggest not to. That's just a personal thing. This is more than just spicy, okay? This is very detailed things in here that maybe younger readers should not be reading. So just a caution and a warning for these books. So with that being said, I 110% recommend this book. I am obsessed with this series. If you follow me along on Instagram, you'll see that I have a whole like book highlight in my Instagram where I rate all of these books kind of like as I read them. So there's probably more details in that, but I would definitely rate this like 1,000 on 10. That's how obsessed I am with this book and just this series in general. It is a series, so we're gonna move on to the second book to this series. So next up from the Blood and Ash series, we have A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, same thing by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and it kind of just continues the story of Poppy and her guard. This one is my favorite book out of the series. It's a series of 3 for right now. I did pre-order the 4th book that's coming out in March actually, called A War of Two Queens. There's a lot of favorite characters for me. I love the 2 main characters. I love Kieran so much. I love Vonetta so much. There's so many characters in these books that are just so relatable and so funny and just so, I don't know, just so likable. So essentially, again, it's continuing the story of Poppy and her lover or her guard, whatever you want to call him. If you know, you know. I'm not gonna say anything because I read these books blindly and the plot twist is insane. So there is a betrayal. I'm not going to go into specifics, but it's a huge plot twist, and she's been captured and she's feeling betrayed. She's at war with herself between what she knows is right and what she knows is wrong, basically learning that everything she grew up with is all a lie. So everything she's been told by her guardians, by her kingdom, by her, you know, just her surroundings, it's all a lie. And she finds out more about the Ascension is and what it entails. She's very sheltered and she's very protected, I guess, so she doesn't really know anything outside of her realm, her kingdom. She's just dealing with that and struggling with that. I find she's battling a lot with her head and her heart in this book specifically. And lastly in the series so far that I have with me right now, as I said, there's a 4th book coming out, but this is the 3rd one to the Blood and Ash series, and it's called The Crown of Gilded Bones, following the story of Poppy and her guard. I don't really know what to say without spoiling anything, but there's a lot of stuff revealed. There's a lot of stuff going on in this book. I know that a lot of people don't actually like this book and they find it hard to read this one, and it's the least favorite out of the series. I quite enjoyed this book. I've read all of them pretty quickly. A lot's going on with Poppy in this book. A lot's going on with her love interest in this book, and they're kind of just figuring out how to deal with everything. So it's a lot of internal battles and internal demons, and I don't want to spoil this, but if you thought that this author was done with cliffhangers and with surprising you and catching you off guard, you're absolutely wrong, because she's caught me off guard in I think all 3 of these books. 10 on 10 will recommend this series. This is my favorite series of this whole year. Okay, so next, this book may look familiar because it is by the same author from the Blood and Ash series, but this one is a series on its own, and it's called A Shadow in the Ember, and it's by Jennifer L. Armentrout, obviously again. So this is the prequel to the From Blood and Ash series. It did come after A Crown of Gilded Bones, so this is technically the 4th one, but it's a separate series. But it really helps you understand the world and the fantasy world of these books so much better. It makes everything so clear. Again, I can't spoil it because I can't. It's just the whole plot twist of the whole series, so I can't spoil this at all, but I'm gonna tell you about it a little bit. Extremely spicy. So again, we got another maiden. Again, this is a prequel, so this was like a while before those books. So there's another maiden. So essentially, to save her people from something called the rot, so it's kind of like a curse, I guess you can say, she has to marry the primal of death. So it's kind of like a god, I would say. Like, that's how the best I can kind of describe these people. They're gods, okay? So she's mortal and she has to marry a god to save her people from something called the rot. I'm not going to get into specifics, but she's basically being forced into an arranged marriage with a man that she's never met, that she doesn't know anything about. rot, and she's the maiden again. So again, you gotta remember she's very sheltered, can't do anything on her own. They believe that if she kills the primal of death, like she needs to get close to him, so she needs to make him fall in love with her, and if she kills him, it will end the curse of the land, which is the rot. So she's essentially been trained from birth to be this assassin and this seductress, I guess, to seduce the primal of death into her grasp, I guess you could say, and kill him for her people, for her kingdom. So as you guys can guess, she ends up kind of falling for him as well, and they start this relationship, and it's another head and heart battle. She knows that she has to kill him essentially for her kingdom, to protect her people, but she's struggling with her head and her heart because she feels connection to him, she feels attracted to him. Very spicy book, but very good plot line. This is a really good book, and it just ties in the whole series together. So next we're kind of gonna move on to a book that I did not personally enjoy, and I'm ready for the hate, I'm ready for the backlash for this, but this is called Shatter Me. It says my touch is lethal, my touch is power. This is a series of books. I only got the first one. It took me a little bit to read it. I just wasn't into it whatsoever. I don't know why. I just wasn't. I couldn't exactly tell you exactly why. It was just, it kind of reminds me of like a superhero type of book, like an X-Men-y type of book. Again, it's a fantasy book. So essentially this story follows Juliet, who has kind of this superpower, I guess curse as she would probably say, where when she touches someone, her touch is fatal, you die. She's locked up in a prison. There's like a lover that she reconnects with, and her touch magically doesn't kill him for some reason, and she's on the run from these people who are trying to get her, and it's kind of like reminds me of like a little bit Divergent-y, but like not as good as Divergent. I just personally didn't like this. I don't have anything to say about it. I barely remember the story very much, but I just couldn't get into it. I didn't like it after I finished it. It's written pretty well. Like, I'm not gonna say the author's shit or anything like that. Like, she writes really beautifully and really well. It's just not for me. It's just a personal preference, so I didn't really like this book at all. So this next book is called Dance of Thieves. It's a beautiful cover, beautiful book. So this is a series of 2. I don't have the second book because again, I want it in softcover. This book was good. For me personally, it wasn't amazing, it wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible and it wasn't bad. It was good. It's really well written. It was a bit hard for me to get into this book. There's a lot of aspects of this book that I love. The characters are incredible. So the main character, Kazi, is absolutely incredible. Another badass. She's one of the women that are a part of the Queen's Guard. So there's this boy that she meets. His name is Jace Ballinger. He's from the Ballinger family, empire, whatever you want to call it. They get thrust into a situation together where they end up shackled to one another. Again, enemies to lovers, back to enemies, back to lovers, back to enemies, back to lovers, like 10 times in this book. I'm not kidding. Like, they literally are on and off in this book, like the whole book, and they're basically forced into a relationship together, forced to spend time together. Obviously they're shackled together, and just there's a lot of lying, there's a lot of betrayal. This book is not spicy at all. I would rate this like 0 spice. So it is safe for everyone to read. It's a really detailed, good book. Again, it has its own like fantasy. And I forgot to mention, some of these books do have a map of the fantasy world, so it's easier to follow along. So this one essentially kind of just looks like this. Super beautifully detailed. The book is beautiful. It looks like that on the back. And it was a good book, but I am not overly pressed, I guess you could say, to read the second one. This next book you would have seen in my what I got for Christmas haul, because I did buy this book with an Indigo gift card that I got from my friend, and it is Crescent City by S.J. Maas or Sarah J. Maas. This book is incredible, like 100,000 times out of 10 incredible. I would literally like rank this up there with my From Blood and Ash series. I'm not even kidding. This is an incredible book. This is my first time reading, I think, from this author. I know she has a few series that I also still want to read, but just something about this book really enticed me. It is a big book. It's around 800 pages, and I flew through this really quickly. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. So this story follows half fae, half human Bryce Quinlan, another badass woman, another credible character, really relatable character, and her love interest, which is Hunt Athlar, who is a fallen angel, meaning he was basically disgraced, I guess you can say, and is essentially a slave, actually. And there's a murder that takes place. She kind of tries to forget about the murder, and 2 years later, the murderer strikes again because it starts killing in the same way as before. Again, this is a fantasy book, so there's fae, there's fairies, there's pixies, there's angels, there's demons, there's wolves, there's a wolf pack, like everything like that. So it's just basically a city full of fantasy creatures, I guess, living amongst themselves and living with humans or mortals or whatever you want to call them. She's thrust into this investigation with Hunt, who is assigned to protect her while they find the killer that's on the loose. This book literally made me cry. I'm not kidding. I cried throughout this entire book. I laughed. I enjoy a lot of these characters. I love Hunt and Bryce's dynamic. It's just amazing. Bryce as a person is just super sarcastic and hilarious, and Hunt is just such like a sweetheart underneath all of that exterior that he tries to put out. He's a typical like bad boy. Bryce is also the typical bad girl, I would say, but deep down she does really care, and she kind of puts off a front that she doesn't care and that she's just this party girl who like drinks and does all these drugs and doesn't care and sleeps around with anyone, but deep down she does really care, and what she does is kind of just to protect herself and her friends. She does love her friends very deeply, I will say, and I would love to have a friend like Bryce Quinlan, like 100% would love to have someone like that as a friend. An amazing book, an amazing story. I got sucked into this world. There is a second one coming out. I don't even know when, but I'm definitely going to jump on that right away. Absolutely love this author and the way she portrays her characters and the way she writes. It's just hilarious. It'll make you cry. It'll give you every type of feeling ever, and it's just an incredible story. And again, I don't want to spoil anything, but I was completely shocked throughout this book and would 100% recommend this. So the next series that I'm going to talk about is a series I'm still currently reading. I'm on the last book of this series so far, and it is A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. So let's start with the first book. So this is what it looks like. It's incredibly beautiful. This is a modern day retelling of Hades and Persephone, if you guys don't know who they are, from Greek mythology. So Persephone is a goddess. She's the daughter of Demeter. Persephone is the goddess of spring, but she keeps her identity a secret. Nobody knows about her because her mother had kept her locked up basically her whole life. She grew up in Olympia, but she goes to New Athens to essentially become a journalist. She is disguised as a mortal and nothing more. It's a forbidden love. She is obviously attracted to Hades. She falls in love with Hades. Her mother Demeter absolutely like forbids her to be in contact with any god, least of all Hades. Her mother hates Hades, and essentially her mother's just that overbearing protective type of mother, but like in a cruel way. Like she's mean, and she's hidden a lot of things from Persephone her whole life. Persephone kind of just only gains her like confidence and just all that stuff after meeting Hades. She does meet him at Hades nightclub. So Hades is like a huge gambling, like nightclub owning like god. She gets into a bind with Hades and a contract with Hades where she has to create life in the underworld, which for her seems absolutely impossible. I really enjoy this book. It's just a modern day Greek mythology book. I absolutely love this series. 1,000 on 10 would recommend. This is also extremely spicy. Like extremely. I think this is more spicy than the From Blood and Ash series. So definitely for adult readers. There's a lot of adult content. I am 23, guys. I'm turning 24. I'm not a kid. Don't worry. I can pick my own books, and I've honestly grew up reading Wattpad fan fiction, so I don't think anything surprises me anymore. The next book of the series is called A Touch of Ruin. So obviously still continuing with Hades and Persephone's relationship. They're in love, and she faces a tragedy, and she feels like he's not there to help her. He's not willing to help her, so she seeks bargains with other people. I'm not going to be in specific, but she does get herself into a lot of trouble. Their relationship is very up and down, very rocky in this book. Again, it's very spicy. All of these books are very spicy. There's a lot of spicy scenes. I just love these books. This is the second one. It just continues their story, and she's dealing with a lot of backlash for her relationship with Hades, not only with her mother, but from obviously the media and everyone in the mortal realm, because Hades is very much famous for being hated. There's a lot of hatred surrounding him. Obviously, people judge a book by its cover when it comes to Hades, and he doesn't tend to prove them wrong. And the last book of the series is called A Touch of Malice, and here it is. And I'm still in the middle of reading this, so I don't have a full review. So a war is coming in this book. They're continuing their relationship without the blessing or the support of a lot of people, and that gets them into a lot of trouble, especially with her mother, who is trying everything in her power to separate them in any way she can. There's a lot going on in this book so far. Persephone honestly annoys the hell out of me sometimes. Like, more often than not, I think my favorite character is probably Hades. I find she acts obviously a little bit immature and obviously doesn't think about the consequences to her own actions, but she is a very good person and she is a very fierce woman, which I appreciate. What I do love about this book, which I'm going to point out, is there is a content warning on one of the pages, and I'm going to show you right now. I did post this as well on my Instagram, which I love. A lot of books I don't think have content warnings, and I think it's important to have content warnings. So the last book that I have is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. So it's the same author from Crescent City. Why I left this last is because I haven't read this yet. I'm gonna read it after I finish the Hades and Persephone series. I don't know what this book is about. I don't know if this is enemies to lovers. I have no idea. I didn't want to spoil this for myself. There's a lot of hype about this book on Book Talk, and I just don't really want to spoil it for myself, so I kind of just don't really get into depth in those TikToks. I kind of just go through them because I'm like, I don't want to spoil anything for myself. But I do know this author, so I know there's going to be a lot of betrayals. Probably there's going to be a lot of twists and turns. I haven't read it yet, but I'm excited to start it. Alright guys, so that is going to conclude the end of this very, very long book haul. If you stayed till the end, thank you so much. Love ya, really appreciate it. I know it was a lot. I know it was a lot of information, a lot of books, so hopefully I didn't overwhelm anyone, and if I did, I'm truly sorry for that. This is the type of video you guys like to see from me. Please let me know so I can continue doing so. I'm kind of trying out new types of content. Didn't mean to offend anyone in any sort of way with my opinions. These are just my personal opinions, so I'm really sorry if I didn't like one of your favorite books. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out all of my social medias that will be linked down below if you like to see some book content. I do post a lot on Instagram and on TikTok about books. I really hope everyone is staying safe, happy, and healthy as always, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for sticking around. Bye.